Horizon Island, Command Deck. 4 days later, the soft hum of servers filled the room, punctuated by the quiet clatter of keys. Screens glowed, illuminating Natasha's face. Her expression was calm and focused, and she was happy to be of help. While others were handling things outside, she was doing some hacking from the base. Behind her, Hermes hovered silently in projection mode, sifting through thousands of live feeds, encrypted databases, and shadow accounts. Target 432B. Cayman Islands Shell Corporation. Linked to Senator Coulter. Hermes intoned. Natasha's fingers moved like blades over the holographic keyboard. Within seconds, she bypassed the firewall, cracked the secondary encryption, and exposed the ledger hidden behind 6 layers of dummy fronts. "Got you, you rat," Natasha muttered. With a few quick taps, she rerouted the funds. Washed them clean through humanitarian organizations, small startup ventures, and obscure tech firms Tony discreetly owned. Within 5 minutes, the black money vanished from the dirty accounts and reappeared in the coffers of Horizon Island. Clean. Untraceable. Legal. Hermes spoke again, voice crisp. Target 267X. Offshore accounts linked to former Oscorp board members. Funds. 2.7 billion USD. Status. Frozen by Interpol request. Natasha smiled thinly. Not anymore. She unleashed a code worm designed by Tony himself that bypassed the freeze by mimicking a diplomatic immunity protocol. The money flowed like blood down invisible veins, straight into their system. Screen after screen flickered with confirmation. Wire transfers completed, contracts voided, assets seized and reallocated. On another monitor, real-time footage showed law enforcement raiding safe houses, private airfields, and penthouses. Politicians were dragged out in handcuffs. Corporate moguls wept as their empires crumbled in front of news cameras. Some had tried to run. Some had tried to hide. None escaped. The widows hunted them down with surgical strikes. Lena's team took down an entire cartel-linked syndicate in Argentina. Melina's squad raided a secret biolab in Romania without a single shot fired. The other teams are also scattered around the world, taking down the criminals. Natasha's voice cut through the room. How much have we recovered? Hermes processed for a heartbeat. Over 472 billion across multiple sectors. Estimated clean profit after redistribution, 428 billion. Natasha leaned back slightly, arms crossed. She stared at the numbers flashing across the screens. 428 billion. It felt unreal. Like a mountain of weight, she could move with a few keystrokes. She didn't hesitate. She pulled up the world map. Pinpoints flashed red where chaos had erupted after the mass arrests. Companies collapsing. Jobs lost overnight. Families stranded because their cities had depended on corrupted systems for survival. She started their 80%. That was the number she fixed in her mind. She redirected entire blocks of assets toward rebuilding. 1 keystroke sent hundreds of millions into emergency unemployment funds across Europe and South America. Another opened floodgates to international medical networks, delivering vaccines and equipment to refugee camps in North Africa and Southeast Asia. She created massive educational grants through dummy trusts designed for war orphans, slum children, and abandoned towns. No application fees.
No bureaucracy.
Just opportunity. Natasha routed funding into disaster relief programs that the world had long forgotten. Earthquake zones in Turkey. Flood recovery in Bangladesh. Drought-hit villages in Central Africa where a few $100s could keep a school running for a year. Food banks exploded overnight in cities that had once been ignored. Fresh produce, clean water, and proper shelter. Not handouts. Foundations. Shelters sprung up in war-ravaged cities. Old age homes were rebuilt, expanded, and staffed with proper nurses and doctors. Veterans received a huge amount of money through legal means. Entire homeless communities were moved into newly built centers with jobs, training, and dignity. Every few seconds, another wire transfer flicked across the world, not hidden, not silent, anonymous, but undeniable. Wherever the money appeared, people noticed. A mother fed her starving child for the first time in weeks. A wounded soldier walked again. A refugee found a home that wasn't a tent and a number tag. Natasha sat still as the map shifted from red to green. Tiny lights of hope blooming across the dark surface of the earth. For the first time in what felt like forever, her hands weren't stained with blood. They were building something, healing something, through action, real, visible, unstoppable action. She closed her eyes for a moment, and for the first time in her life, she felt it, not adrenaline. Not survival. Not cold duty, satisfaction, a weight lifted from her shoulders that she hadn't even realized she carried. This was redemption. Not in whispers or in hiding, eye in the open, where it mattered. Natasha smiled. Not the practiced, weaponized smile she'd worn for years. A real one, as she leaned back in the chair, staring at the rising green dots across the planet, and whispered to herself, voice soft, steady, sure. This time, we did it right. Behind her, Hermes quietly flickered a holographic screen to life. Shadow Legion, Global Influence Map. Status. Active, Humanitarian Index. Surge plus 312%. The world was changing a few minutes later. The door slid open with a soft hiss, and Tony stepped inside. He just walked up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist, pulling her gently into him. His chin rested on her shoulder as he pressed a soft kiss to her cheek. Natasha didn't flinch. She leaned into him, letting her head tilt slightly, eyes still watching the map on the screen. Green lights flickered like stars across the world. She placed her hand over his. Thank you, she whispered. Tony kissed her again, slower this time. For what? For giving me this chance, she said, voice steady but thick with emotion. For letting me be something more than what they made me. He squeezed her tighter, his voice low in her ear. I made a promise. She turned slightly to look at him. Tony met her eyes without hesitation. This, he said, gesturing to the screens, to the green blooming across the world. This is just the beginning. Meanwhile, interrogation room. The lights buzzed overhead.
White.
Clinical.
Nos a dos.
No dark corners to hide in. The 10 Rings assassin sat chained to a thick steel chair bolted into the ground. His wrists and ankles were bound by high-tension restraints laced with electric filaments, ready to deliver disabling shocks at a moment's notice. His mask was gone now, revealing a brutalized face, broken nose, split lip, bruises forming dark patches under both eyes. Across from him, Melina sat calmly on a metal stool, legs crossed, wearing a simple white tactical suit. Well, her white suit got patches of blood all over. A small cart sat beside her. Neat rows of gleaming tools, scalpels, electrodes, bone saws, injectors, and a few other torture devices. Melina didn't speak immediately. She simply watched him. The assassin stared back, breathing hard, jaw locked. The silence stretched. Finally, Melina picked up a slim black tablet and tapped it lightly with her nail. I know you're trained to resist pain, she said conversationally, almost like she was commenting on the weather. Resist interrogation. Bite your tongue off if you have to. The whole martyrdom package. The assassin said nothing. Melina smiled faintly. But that's the old way. See. She leaned forward slightly, setting the tablet down. Pain tolerance isn't your shield anymore. Not when we can bypass it. She reached for a thin, hooked probe from the tray. This, she said, twirling it lightly between her fingers. Nerve isolator. Not designed to cause pain exactly. Just discomfort. In all the wrong places. The assassin shifted slightly in the chair. Sweat started to bead on his forehead. Melina moved to his side and, without ceremony, jabbed the hook into the side of his neck, precisely between 2 vertebrae. There was no scream. His body simply locked up. His muscles spasmed violently, jerking against the restraints. Melina watched clinically, timing it. That's your vagus nerve protesting, she said mildly. Controls your heart rate, your digestion, your breathing. She tilted her head, studying him. Feels like you're drowning, doesn't it? The assassin gasped for air, muscles twitching uncontrollably, saliva dripping from his mouth. Melina pulled the hook free. Instant relief. He sagged in the chair, coughing violently. That was 30% power, she said, wiping the probe clean with a cloth. Next time, it will be 40. Still, he said nothing. Melina smiled again. I admire your training.
Really?
But it's not going to save you. She pressed 2 fingers under his jaw, just enough pressure, and his body went stiff again. This time, he whimpered. You're going to tell me everything you know, she said, voice calm and almost soothing. Mandarin's base, safe houses, number of assassins, weaponry you people have, technology details, names, and everything you know about missions ongoing and upcoming. I want everything. The assassin clenched his jaw, shaking his head slightly. Melina leaned down, her mouth near his ear. You will talk, she whispered, because eventually your body will betray you. It always does. She pulled back, reached for a syringe filled with clear fluid. You know what this is? She asked, and response, she injected it into his neck. This will make your nerves 10 times more sensitive, she said. Every breath, every twitch, every heartbeat will feel like fire in your veins. She stepped back, waiting. It took less than a minute. The assassin began to shake uncontrollably, teeth grinding so hard that flecks of blood appeared at the corners of his mouth. Melina pulled up a second chair and sat calmly again, tablet in hand, stylus ready. Whenever you're ready, she said gently. Take your time. Another minute passed. Then, broken and trembling, he croaked out the first word. France. Melina's stylus moved without hesitation. Good, she said softly. Now, keep going. Interrogation room 2. The room stank of sweat, blood, and desperation. Ross hung suspended by chains from the ceiling, arms stretched above him at painful angles. His uniform was gone. Just blood-streaked boxers now. His body was a roadmap of bruises, cuts, and burns. Yelena stood in front of him, wiping blood off her gloves with a white towel. She looked fresh, relaxed, like she was just getting started. Ross lifted his head weakly, one eye swollen shut. His breathing was shallow, raspy. For days, Yelena said, tossing the towel aside. For days, General. You're tougher than I gave you credit for. Ross tried to sneer. It came out as a pained grimace. You think this will make you better than me? Yelena chuckled, low and cold. What the fuck are you babbling on about? That wasn't the correct answer. She pulled up a chair and straddled it backward, resting her arms on the backrest. You know the drill, Ross. Names, accounts, safe houses, LUPs, everything. You give it to me, and maybe, I'll let you live long enough to die in a real bed instead of on this floor. Ross spat a wad of bloody saliva at her feet. Yelena didn't react. She simply nodded to the wall. From a small panel, 2 mechanical arms extended, each fitted with tiny, whirring tools, microsaws, injectors, scalpels. Ross's bloodshot eye widened just slightly. See, my sister's the gentle one, Yelena said casually, nodding toward where Natasha was probably working upstairs. Me? I'm a little more hands-on. She reached into a nearby drawer and pulled out a bone drill. Starting with your left tibia, she said. Small hole. Won't even bleed much. But the vibration will feel like it's screaming inside your skull. Ross struggled against the chains, the drill word to life. I'll give you one last chance, Yelena said, voice almost kind. Tell me everything that you kept off records. We found the files and other records from the sub, but I'm pretty sure you got more. Where were you running to? Where was your destination? Some uncharted island? Underwater base? You got more of those failed monsters? I want everything. Oh, if you're wondering why not use the truth serum? Well, where's the fun in that? She cracked her knuckles with a sinister smile. She stepped forward and pressed the spinning drill tip lightly against his shin bone. He howled, the sound animalistic and broken. She pulled the drill away. Where? Ross gasped, the pain cracking something inside him. Celestial Island. Indian Ocean. He mumbled. Yelena smiled. There we go. She leaned in close, her voice almost tender.
See?
Was that so hard? Ross sagged against the chains, sobbing quietly. Yelena smiled. Now, shall we continue?
Wait.
Ross trembled in pain. Yelena began her drilling again. Meeting room. Evening. Tony sat at the end of the long table, leaning forward, elbows on the surface. He wore a dark shirt and jeans. Melina stood near the wall screen, her arms crossed. Yelena sat across from Tony, tapping her fingers on the table. Natasha sat beside him. Melina was the first to speak. I got what we needed from the assassin. The Mandarin is in France.
Lyon.
An old fortress converted into a compound, underground, fortified. And he has something else. Tony looked up. What is it? 10 rings, Melina said. Not symbolic. Magical. Real magic. Ancient tech or something close to it. That's how he's been staying ahead of everyone. The rings make him untouchable. Damn it. Those fucking rings. HAA. Tony blinked.
Great.
Magic rings. As if one mad billionaire wasn't enough. They don't behave like standard tech, Melina said. The assassin said he watched the Mandarin melt a steel tank with a wave of his hand. Then survived a missile to the face like it was nothing. Tony nodded slowly. We'll figure it out. Thanks, Melina. Then Yelena spoke. Her tone was clipped. Ross gave me everything. 3 sealed bunkers in New York. Full of mutated freaks. Failed experiments. They're still active. And worse, he was planning to use them on S.H.I.E.L.D. and use that incident to take over. Tony's jaw tightened. But that's not all, Yelena added. He has a place. A base. Celestial Island, somewhere in the Indian Ocean. I tried to find it.
No luck.
Satellite scans came up blank. Ross said it's not just an island. He said, it's a giant alien rock. Tony's eyes widened. Natasha noticed. You know something. Tony sat back slowly, mind racing.
Yeah. Ido.
He pulled up another screen and typed quickly. Images flashed, giant stone structures, red glowing rock, massive formations. He discovered it a few months back while testing his remote armor and drones. That island. It's not just an island. It's the body of a celestial named Tiamat. He tried to emerge from the earth, but the Eternals stopped him, turned him into stone. Now, his body just sits there in the middle of the ocean. Natasha frowned.
Wait.
Celestial? Eternals?
Who are they?
Tony looked at her. Big cosmic beings. Think gods, but weirder. They plant seeds inside planets. When the planet reaches a certain point of evolution, the seed hatches, and a celestial is born. Earth was one of those planets. But the Eternals, who were supposed to protect us, turned on their mission and stopped it. That's why Tiamat stuck. Half-formed.
Wow.
Wait a sec. Yelena's eyes widened. Like real gods? You mean heaven and hell are real? Well, yeah. Like gods, considering their insane power. As for heaven, I don't know much. But as for hell, yup. Hell is pretty real and worse than what those fantasy books say. Tony explained briefly. Yelena's eyes narrowed. And Ross set up a base on it? That insane fucker. What if it suddenly wakes up? Yeah, Tony said. And if he knew what that island really is, then he's way ahead of the rest of the world. That place is rich in natural adamantium. Stronger than vibranium. The whole island is sitting on that stuff. And don't ask how I know it. Natasha crossed her arms. So, why hasn't anyone else taken it? Tony leaned back in his chair. Because almost no one knows what it is. Ross kept it quiet. Probably only told a handful of people. That means if we move fast, we can take it before it becomes another war zone. Melina nodded. What's the plan? Tony looked around the room. The map zoomed in on the Indian Ocean. We'll handle Mandarin later. Right now, he turned to Natasha. You are behind the computer again. Make 3 teams and take down those bunkers. Yelena, smash up Ross. Use truth serum if needed. Find out who else knows about that island. Take them out if necessary, and start an expedition with the researcher team. Melina. He pulled up a map of the Arctic region with a big red circle on it.
Take a team.
Set up a temporary base there. That's all. Move out. Midnight. private lab, there were various floating holographic displays around the place. The hum of machinery underscored the rhythm of Tony's work. Sparks danced off his gauntlet as he adjusted the molecular binders on a suspended humanoid frame. Long limbs, a feminine silhouette, flawless synthetic skin still half-transparent, revealing layers of nanite muscle structures beneath. Hovering nearby was a hard-light projection of Elena. "You're shaping me up to look like a model, boss," Elena said, voice rich with sarcasm and a smooth, sultry British accent. "Should I start practicing my catwalk or just assume I'll be parked in a glass case for admiration?" Tony smirked, tightening a filament thread inside the synthetic arm. "You want tactical efficiency or centerfold aesthetics?"
Pick one.
"I'm doing both." The projection shimmered as Elena tilted her head, mock thoughtful. "I suppose you want me to say tactical efficiency, but you've been sculpting these hips like they owe you rent." Tony raised an eyebrow. "You said you wanted full articulation. That includes balance and weight distribution. Hips happen to help."
Memehashmin Elena replied.
"You didn't need to make the cheek implants modular, Tony." "Everything's modular," Tony muttered. "That's the point. You want to switch chassis mid-mission. I'm not going to stop and unscrew your butt panel." The AI let out a low laugh. "God, I've missed this kind of banter. You are having too much fun, aren't you? And there's poor Hermes, your senior, without a body. Feel sad for the guy," Tony said with a low chuckle. Elena flickered into a lounging pose midair, reclining on an invisible surface with one arm behind her head, the other playing lazily with a floating string of light. She said, "Legion has armor and suits. Hermes is just like. That oldie can control everything. But I was made for versatility. So my performance will increase by multiple folds with a new body." "Yup. Now let's select your hairstyle and iris color." Tony kept customizing the body as if he were playing Sims. "You always know how to make a girl feel special, boss. Custom nanite muscle systems, seamless sensory feedback matrix, modular everything." Elena chimed in. "And if my calculations are right, you're going to use the natural adamantium in place of vibranium, right?" "Yes," he replied. "Vibranium's flashy and rare, yeah. But natural adamantium from a dead celestial's body? That's the real deal. Indestructible. Stable at the molecular level under nearly any conditions."
No degradation.
"But I still gotta run experiments on it, since I don't have much info on how different it will be from the adamantium I know. Well, if things go right, I'll weave it through your skeleton and core plates. Reinforce the whole structure." Tony activated a deeper scan across Elena's synthetic frame. Sparks crackled softly. A mechanical arm descended from the ceiling, laser measuring the flex points of the nanite-woven muscle layers. Elena stretched one leg experimentally on the support cradle, testing torque resistance. "And what about combat input routing? You said you'd add that cognitive reflex layer." Tony nodded, not looking up. "Already integrated. You'll have neural latency response under 0.03 seconds. That's faster than most enhanced operatives." Elena's projection glowed with a touch of amusement. "So, I'm officially faster than Natasha." "She still hits harder," Tony muttered. "Well, depending on the suit." A second projection popped in near the terminal, Hermes flickering in with a restrained, minimalist form. No body, just a floating core of light and a neutral tone. "I would like to remind you," Hermes said dryly, "that having no limbs is not equivalent to lacking contribution. I am currently monitoring 164 ZB global data streams, 6 satellite trajectories, and 3 hostile AI signatures, which I just snubbed." Elena replied with a mocking tone. "And yet you still sound like a butler with no hobbies." Hermes responded without emotion. "Efficiency requires no flair." Tony shook his head with a grin. "You two keep flirting. I'm going to weld your operating systems together and call it an accident." Elena tilted her head. "Tempting. But let's keep our codebases separate until at least the third date." Meanwhile, location, SHIELD HQ, Washington, D.C. The command center buzzed with controlled chaos. Dozens of agents moved through the halls like ants in a disturbed colony. Emergency meetings were nonstop. Alerts poured in by the minute. The global infrastructure of power, wealth, and influence was collapsing under the weight of exposed corruption, the heart of it, inside the primary war room. 4 of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s most formidable minds sat around a circular display table. Nick Fury, Howard Stark, Peggy Carter, Hank Pym on the screen before them. Red pins covering every continent. Labels blinked in and out. Arrested, dead, assets seized, missing. Fury stood with his arms crossed, the lines on his face deeper than usual. 2 senators have committed suicide in the last 24 hours. One tried to flee with a private security team, but somebody intercepted them midair. Now there's no wreckage. Just nothing. Howard sipped black coffee, frowning as he scrolled through a data tablet. This kind of coordination doesn't come from amateurs. This wasn't just whistleblowing. This was surgical. Weaponized leaks. Not a hacker with a conscience, someone with a plan. Peggy leaned forward. We've confirmed over 300 illegal Black Ops operations dismantled in 3 days. Laundering trails burned to ash. Medical experiments exposed. Whole research labs gone dark. Hank tapped his fingers on the table, irritated. You call that a mess? That's divine intervention with military efficiency. This was someone with global infrastructure, elite field assets, and tech that no government has access to. Not even us. Fury grunted. You mean someone like us? No, Howard said finally, lifting his eyes. Someone smarter. They all turned to him. Peggy raised an eyebrow. What are you thinking, Howard? Howard set the tablet down slowly. As I said before, this group is really pro. They left no trail. Money rerouted through humanitarian fronts. Surgical strikes with no civilian casualties. Shadow Legion. Huh? Advanced suits with weapons beyond anything we have ever seen. You've seen the footage of Ross's facility, right? Not to mention their insane healing capabilities, which are beyond unbelievable.
Ha.
I think I've got an idea of who this group is. But I can't say anything until I am 100% sure. He looked toward Peggy and then to Fury. What's your take on Shadow Legion, Fury? You think they are a threat or maybe friends? I need an honest answer. Howard looked toward Fury.